Howdy, compressed air friends. So as they say, out with the old, in with the new. Now, I'm going to do an autopsy on this starter, but I am 99% certain I know what the failure is. I'm going to rip into it here, and I'll be sure to let y'all know. So, for any of you who have maybe not had a starter apart before, this is what the internals look like. So, put that on. So, those couple screws, we're going to take that off. This is our actual mechanism here. So, this bar right here, you can see the linkage down here, is linked to the actual contacts inside the starter. So, when this starter is pulling in and out, this is what's moving. And it's the magnetic field that this coil right here creates that draws this down and locks it in. So when you energize the coil up here, that draws in, connects the contacts, makes this thing work. So when I take this off, you savvy starter guys out there already see the problem. And I already saw the problem too, because I found them laying in the bottom of the starter cabinet. For those of you who may not know, these are called shading coils. Those are supposed to fit right there. And that is a factory fit slash glue right there. Once these shading coils come out, there's pretty much no saving this thing. You gotta replace it. And what these shading coils do is, this is AC voltage coming into this coil, right? So 60 times per second, we're crossing a 0 point. To keep the starter from shattering at a rate of 60 times per second, these shading coils are here, and they kind of act, I guess the best way to explain it would be as like a voltage seal. And that way when the starter actually locks in, it locks in, and it doesn't sit here and go, ah. So, yeah, like I said, I found these laying in the bottom of the cabinet, and the complaint was the starter was chattering. And I was like, well, there you go. So, customer opted to not put another starter in. They opted to go with the soft starter. So that's what we're doing today. Now, just as an added bonus, I might take this apart and show you guys the contacts inside. Alright friends, so once again, for those of you who may not know, every old timer watching this video right now is going, holy hell. But yeah, so when you pull this big centerpiece out, you've got those copper contacts there, and when that coil pulls in, that's actually what comes in and bridges this gap here and allows that current to flow. Is those guys there will make contact with these guys here, and current flows, motor runs. They do make, they call them like starter renew kits or contact kits. You can get all new contacts like these. You can see that's just as simple as taking a screw out and replacing that guy. These in here, these are spring-loaded usually. Oh no, these have the screw over here. That whole thing will lift out, and you can actually replace these. The problem with a failure of this sort is when you get the contactor renew kit, you basically get those contacts, and that's it. So, what you will not get is we will not get this piece with the new shading coils. So, like I said, when you see those shading coils laying in the bottom of your starter cabinet, your only real option is to replace the starter. I've tried jamming these back in, I've tried gluing them back in, like I've tried all kinds of things to revive a starter when the shading coils fall out, but it just doesn't happen. So anyway, that's the anatomy of the starter. I will check back in once we get this soft start in programmed, and we'll see how smoothly she operates. Well, friends, here we have our finished product. You can see power is off, so nobody can yell at me for sticking my fingers in here. So, obviously we got our incoming 480, got our controls down here, and this ended up working a little bit differently than what I thought it was going to. My original plan, so of course we have our starter trigger here, that's pretty easy, that was just getting coil wire. We have our A1 and A2 back here, constant power, and then we have our constant power into our relay output common, and then we've got one output on here. And the way I had originally wired this up is I had relay 1, which is this output right here. I had that set to run, right? And this is on an old Gardner Denver controller. So I had that output set to run, and I just took the wire from the old starter input auxiliary. There we go, there's the right word. I just took the wire from the old starter auxiliary, hooked it right in there, and this is my drive fault, which is tied to the motor overload circuit for the ES controller, but because that is a normally closed circuit and these contacts are normally off and normally open, I had to run it through a relay. No big deal, right? Okay. So we fire it up, get the drive all programmed, fire it up, get it running, and everything's cool, everything's working great. Hit the stop button, goes into its 90-second blowdown, and then it stops. And then we get a starter fault. And I was like, what in the world is going on here? So, went through, adjusted a bunch of different parameters in here, was reading in the book, trying to figure out what is going on here. And what it ended up being is that these WEG SSW series drives, there is a hard-coded 2-second delay in these drives that once the drive actually physically shuts the motor off, these outputs stay latched for 2 seconds at a minimum, and there's no way to bypass it. So what was going on was the controller was giving the stop command, the soft start was receiving the stop command, and it was stopping the motor, but that run signal was staying on. And the ES controller went, oh crap, that's a problem, and it would throw a fault. So what I ended up having to do was I had to set another relay in here. This relay now is triggered off of the same output from the controller as my start command, and then that starter feedback loop just runs through the relay. That way we don't have that 2-second delay, and it works beautifully. So far with this machine, it went from a completely stopped Gardner Denver to I have my aromatics tied in here for it, and this starter actually went bad. That's the one I was showing you guys earlier, and they just decided to go ahead and put a soft starter in it because for the price of a new starter, there wasn't a whole lot more difference. However, if we'd have just put a regular starter in it, we'd have been done a couple hours ago. But anyway, this is the work of one of my other technicians. Super smart guy. I think he's going to end up here in the possibly near, maybe not so near future, I don't know. But the plan is I'm eventually going to end up in sales, I think. And this guy is a strong candidate for replacing me as the controls and refrigeration guy here. So I wish this looked nicer, but a lot of this is just an old machine and things get added and hid and all that. You'd be hours in there cleaning that up. So this is functional, it works. You know, she's a girl for her function, not the beauty. Anyway, let's go ahead. Guys up a little bit. it for